Those of you who've watched my channel before will know that I have a minor obsession with trees. Nutmeg, rubber, gutta percha. Gutta what? Gutta percha. Look it up. It's fascinating, honestly. Anyway, as I was saying, I love trees. But why do I love them so much? Well, apart from being beautiful and amazing organisms, trees can also provide us with shade on a disgustingly hot day, give us countless medicinal remedies, and of course, lots and lots of things to eat. Plus, trees are extremely interesting. Yes, interesting because trees and the pursuit of their products have over the years helped to shape the modern world in many important ways. And in Taiwan, one tree in particular has caught my imagination. The camphor tree. So imagine my excitement when a viewer recently told me about a long forgotten conflict that took place here in Taiwan, my adopted home, involving Britain, the place of my birth. And the reason for this conflict? The camphor tree, or樟腦. Now, up until receiving that message, I'd never even heard of this incident. So I did what I always do in such situations. I quickly started to read everything I could find about the Camphor War of 1868. The following is what I found. Back in the 1800s, Taiwan was famous around Asia and other parts of the world for its three treasures: tea, sugar, and camphor. Although camphor was later to become a crucial ingredient in military applications and the making of movies, up until the early 19th century it had been mainly used for its medicinal properties, easing aches and pains. Although it also had uses as an insect repellent, very important in malaria-riddled Taiwan. These uses had led to camphor being traded far and wide across Asia and the Middle East. And so, when the Qing annexed Taiwan in 1683, its new rulers wasted no time in announcing a monopoly on the trade of this valuable commodity. The next few decades, however, saw the authorities struggle to retain control of Taiwan's camphor forests and production of this valuable substance. So they eventually relaxed the strict controls that at one point had seen people beheaded for trading it illegally. Then in the 1830s there was a sudden boom in demand driven by Europe after claims surfaced that camphor had proven useful in the treatment of Asiatic cholera. The British, the dominant global mercantilists at the time, had long coveted Taiwan's camphor and had been carrying on illicit trade via Hong Kong and sometimes directly with merchants in Taiwan for several years. British companies, including Jardine Matheson, had even proposed the annexation of Taiwan in 1839, around the time of the First Opium War, although it never occurred as they were too wrapped up in their most profitable trading activity to consider it seriously. Nevertheless, the British finally saw a chance to get involved in the camphor trade legally following the end of the Second Opium War, when the Qing were persuaded to open up a further 11 treaty ports to trade. These ports included Anping and Danshui. The opening of the ports saw British merchants out of Hong Kong get heavily involved in the trading of camphor at the expense of local merchants. So the Qing official in Taiwan, known as the Daotai, set up a monopoly known as the Camphor Office in 1863 to protect the trade from foreign control. This became the only legal avenue for foreign traders and was strictly enforced, as merchants were restricted from travelling inland from the treaty ports. Unsurprisingly, the price of camphor through this official channel was, how can I put it, extortionate. So, what did the traders do? They did what traders have done since time immemorial. They bribed officials with other products or paid well-connected locals or smugglers to get their hands on the camphor. But still, the British were not happy, as the Daotai's monopoly continued to make satisfying the increased demand for camphor difficult. Add to that growing interest in the camphor trade from the Americans, and the Brits were starting to get nervous. Enter William Alexander Pickering, or Pi Qiling, as some of you may know him. Anyone who watched the Netflix drama Sakalu may recall seeing this guy. He's a local actor named Andrew Chow. Well, we couldn't afford him, so instead you'll have to make do with this guy. What do you think? Anyway, Pickering is certainly an interesting character, and also one that divides opinion. While British historians picture him as the archetypal colonial adventurer, how do you say, a lovable rogue? Some on the Chinese side view him rather differently, a rough, arrogant, colonial rogue trader of sorts who used his language skills to get himself into and then out of trouble on numerous occasions, mostly while in the pursuit of personal fortune. Born into a middle-class family in Nottingham in 1840, Pickering was the sixth child and only son in a family of 8 siblings. At 16, he embarked on a career at sea as an apprentice on an East India Company ship that visited ports throughout Asia, including China, Burma, Siam and the Malay archipelago. A hard worker, he quickly made his way up through the ranks to become the 3rd mate on a tea clipper out of Liverpool. Then, a chance encounter with an old friend saw him offered a position with China's Imperial Maritime Customs Service, working on the Min River in Fuzhou. Working as a tide waiter, he endeavoured to learn local dialects from talking to labourers, while he also spent a quarter of his salary on Mandarin lessons.
咖啡和茶.
Those efforts paid off, and in 1863, at the age of just 23, Pickering was selected, mainly because of his language ability, for a very important mission. He was chosen to accompany the newly appointed Customs Commissioner for Formosa, William Maxwell, to establish customs houses in Danshui, Geelong and here in Kaohsiung, then known as Dago. Working as a tide waiter in Dago for 2 years, Pickering became fluent in the vernacular as spoken here in Taiwan. While patrolling the coast and hunting down boats involved in illicit trade. Then came another step up the career ladder when he was placed in charge of customs at Anping, the port of the capital Taiwanfu. Again, this worked in Pickering's favour as he used his position and language skills to become friendly with many of the top Qing officials here in Taiwan. Pickering also managed to fit in several visits to Taiwan's remote regions and spend time with indigenous peoples. As Maxwell, a doctor, often travelled to heal the sick, whilst trying to convert them to Christianity. Again, 2 years later, he was offered a lucrative position in charge of the Taiwanfu branch of British company Messrs MacPhail & Co., happily accepting the chance to finally leave the employ of the Imperial government. With horses and servants perks of his new job, Pickering spent even more time in the interior, meeting Taiwan's tribes, improving his language skills and knowledge of local customs and economic activity, of which camphor production was a major component. And that is it for part 1 of the Camphor War of 1868. Join me again next week to find out how trade for camphor skyrocketed and how I got myself and my country into a bit of trouble while in pursuit of this valuable natural resource. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to give it a like. You can subscribe to the channel or hit the bell for notifications. If you'd like to support Hikelopedia, then there are 3 ways. Click thanks down below, buy Richard a coffee over there, or you can become a channel member. Anyway, see you next week for part 2 of the Camphor War of 1868.